one of the hot and trending topics this week, call it controversial if you will, has been stacks. And I've
Right,
just seen a lot of views and takes on stacks. And
right,
so,
right.
it's first let's define a stack. Dale, how would you
Okay.
define stack?
So I actually did kind of look this up because I didn't want to just kind of come off the top of the head. So I kind of looked up what the internet is saying the way you define stacks, right? So
Okay,
this
that's
is what it
interesting.
said.
Okay.
So so stacking or a stack basically refers to multiple players from the same team. Very
Okay.
basic and simple, right? Multiple players. That's two plus. So it could be
Mhm.
two, three, four, five, six, whatever, all
And I
on the
think we
same
both
team,
agree with that. Okay.
right? And then I also looked at, the benefit of stacking. What was listed as the reason people would even want to do this strategy in general, right? So here's what it said. Stacking is making use of correlated plays in order to maximize the potential points your fantasy team can score,
I
right?
love the
So it's
definition.
basically about correlation. It's about
I
correlation,
love that
right?
definition.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
But
so
and
yeah,
the very last point of that, maximizing your team's potential points, I think is key. So
hmm
stacking can I think can be used in any format and can be successful in any format, whether it's your home leagues, redraft, whether it's
DFS
best
for
ball,
me. DFS
yeah,
was kind of where I used to implement it the most, so in my
exactly,
draft teams and everything.
DFS, whether it's high stake leagues. I think it can be used in
hmm
any format, but I think it's very important to understand the definition and to understand what you're trying to achieve and to try and play out the entire season. So for best ball, I think it's pretty straightforward. You
Yeah,
stack a team in hopes that that team outperforms their ADP. So if we look
right.
at years past, who would have been the team to stack last year, you think?
Like the Chiefs, teams with these crazy
No,
offenses.
I mean for specifically, who would have been the team to stack last year for 2020? If you had to go back and do it again, and you were going to create a
Oh,
stack, now, who's the team that you would have stacked for 2020?
you're probably looking at what the Bills,
Yeah.
Diggs and Josh Allen, your Kylers and
Mhm.
your D Hops,
Mhm.
those type of players, your Tyreek Hills, your Travis Kelce's, and your Mahomes type of combinations.
Exactly. So some stacks are easier to come by than others. If you want to try
Right.
and get a Kansas City stack, a Chief stack, you're going to be
You got to
spending a
pay
lot
for it.
of draft capital. Okay. You're going to be
Yep.
missing out on some other players.
Right.
Getting a Bill stack, you mentioned two players, Diggs and Josh Allen. And I don't think you mentioned anyone
Last
else
year
in
they
that.
were going late. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's only two players. Whereas with the Chiefs, we talk, when people talk about stacks, they talk about Mahomes, obviously, and then some combination of Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, or even CEH. So it's
CH.
important to also
Yep.
understand that when you stack, you can stack a wide receiver, you can stack a tight end, and probably a less owned stack or a stack that's less popular is a quarterback and a running back. And for
Eh,
obvious reasons, because the quarterback
eh.
may take away from the running back. My view of
Right.
stacking is that, if we're looking at high stakes, in most high stake leagues, the last 3 weeks, excluding the very last week of the season, the last 3 weeks again are what we call the money weeks. Those are when your total points are accumulated over a 3 week period. Okay. So that's when you want your players going off. So certain stacks to me make it extremely difficult for you to maximize that value, i.e., having a quarterback and having two wide receivers on that same team or two receiving options on that same team. Now, it's possible that two wide receivers on the same team have 3 great weeks, but I think it's difficult. So
Right.
the idea of having Kelce, Mahomes, and Tyreek Hill, yes, sounds great. And if I could start off my
Sounds great.
team with that,
Yeah.
you're not going to lose a league with that. But wouldn't I rather have Devontae Adams, uh, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes?
Right.
Because that allows me to have a situation where Devontae has no impact whatsoever on Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce has no impact whatsoever on Devontae Adams. And in essence,
They can both
I'm
go off together.
maximizing my value. Exactly. So yes, the
Right,
Chiefs can
right,
go up any week and they can score 7 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill can score 3. Kelsey can score 2. CH gets 1. Maybe Mahomes runs in a touchdown. Everybody goes off. But then to bank on that 3 weeks in a row to me is tough. So for
right.
me, I like to ideally stack with 2 players, 3 if I see a situation where it can really pay off and the cost isn't as expensive.
I'm a two stack guy. For me,
Okay.
honestly, it's really only the quarterback and receiver one that I even
Mhm.
care to stack.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like any other player you add, to some extent, you're capping yourself somewhere. Because think about it, you're basically saying if you get multiple receivers and say they do max out, you're basically saying number one, your quarterback just went off,
Mhm.
threw at least 4 touchdowns. Because for me, if a wide receiver goes off, I would say maybe 2 touchdowns, 1.5, 2 touchdowns, right?
Mhm.
So if you have 2 receivers, you're basically saying you want your quarterback to have thrown 4 touchdowns, and 2 of those
Mhm.
touchdowns, or those 4 have to have been concentrated. Not even, no, don't even let me say it like that. 2 of those touchdowns have to have gone to each one of those guys, because that will allow you to have, where it benefits you where at 2 receivers. If
Exactly.
that's not the case, it's better to have that one receiver that maybe scored 3 touchdowns, or maybe all 4. You know what I'm saying? Or got the maximum amount of touchdowns, and have another player somewhere else that happens to do better than that. That other stacked player, wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 or tight end. Again, you said it. I can see how it can help you win leagues or win games during the league. But when you're talking about those money leagues, you're trying to get the most amount of points from every position.
Yeah.
Um,
And
no,
the other point that I want to
no,
bring up about stacks is I don't want to pay for expensive stacks. I want the cheap stack.
right,
I want the stack
right,
that, if you're in a best ball tournament, is ideally less owned. Now with the mass entry in best ball tournaments and with how, you know, how large a field that is, it's going to be hard to find a quote unquote unique stack. So
right,
when you create a stack, to me, I think you want to be simple and you want to have some variance and diversify around that stack. I also like the idea of multiple stacks. And you can do that if you approach stacks that are cheap. You can get
right,
a San Francisco and a Miami stack. Or you can
right.
maybe go for a little bit more expensive stack and a lower stack. So one stack that I definitely want us to cover tonight and want us to talk about are the Seattle Seahawks. This is a team and a stack that I think we have been all over all off season. Stacks are usually centered around the quarterback position. So you have a quarterback and then you're
Right,
stacking him usually with the wide receiver. It's usually not the other way around. And we're usually not revolving a stack around a running back. But
right,
obviously the quarterback for the Seahawks is Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson is a very polarizing player within the fantasy realm. And it may not be necessarily Russell Wilson himself, but what we all view is the
the Seahawks
philosophy
offense.
of the Seahawks offense. Exactly.
Right,
So
right,
is it a situation where we're going to let Russ cook, or is it a situation where Pete Carroll is going to dictate that this be a run-based offense? Because we've seen it year after year. Some years he starts off hot and then cools down. Some years he starts off cold and heats up.
hmm,
Obviously, if he's in a game where he needs to come from behind, typically that's a game where obviously we're going to see some fourth quarter magic, but we don't want to just see fourth
right.
quarter magic. We want to see
Russ is
that
definitely gonna
first,
cook.
second, third, and fourth. So my view on Russell Wilson heading into 2021, reading through the tea leaves, understanding the signing at the offensive coordinator position, understanding the drama,
Who speak on that? Speak on that. They did bring in the Rams offensive coordinator.
Shane Waldron. Correct.
So right,
Exactly. And if you go through his background, it is pretty much an offensive background and a lot of work within the passing coordinator positions at various stops along the way.
right. I
So
mean,
obviously,
obviously he's coming from Sean McVay too. So when you come from Sean
exactly,
McVay,
exactly.
you get that golden touch. So
Yeah, at the very least, it's going to be balanced, but definitely not someone who has been brought through or been breaded in a run-heavy scheme.
right,
So for me, these are all positive news. But again, getting back to Russell Wilson throughout the offseason, at that time was the Russell Wilson saga as far as him giving out different teams that he would like to be traded to. Obviously, he sort of pulled back on that to some degree. I haven't demanded a trade, but if they were going to trade me, these were the teams that I wanted to go to. But obviously,
Right.
the two sides have come together. So for them to bring in this offensive coordinator, for Russell to now obviously be in love with Pete Carroll, and these are guys that are, we assumed at some point they were going to come together. But I think they've come to some agreement. And I think that agreement is that they're going to have some balance. We saw Russell Wilson have times last year. We saw Russell Wilson at times last year have a lot of difficulty reading the field at times, or staying in the pocket too long, with the only thought of looking downfield and throwing deep routes. And so I think what we've heard is that they want to incorporate that quick spread offense, or maybe not necessarily spread offense,
Right.
but quicker pace offense, get the
It's
ball out.
a quick decision type offense. Get the ball out. Right.
Exactly. More of a West Coast style offense. So I'm loving that, especially with the weapons that he has in place. Okay. So
Okay.
the main reason I really love this stack, though, and I think this is going to surprise a lot of people, is not because of DK Metcalf. It's not even because of Tyler Lockett. It's because of Gerald Everett. So in an FFPC format, a tight end premium format,
Yeah.
I love where Gerald Everett is going. I love where
Okay.
Russell Wilson is going. You know who I equate Russell Wilson to this year? I think he's our 2021 version of the 2020 Deshaun Watson. Remember when
Wow.
DeAndre Hopkins left and we saw Watson's value plummet? Our first thought
Right.
was, we don't think people understand how bad a man this dude is.
Right. Yeah.
And
He
our
didn't
first thought
see it the
was
way we saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, and our first thought was this again was a situation of addition by subtraction. You're removing his safety blanket. You're removing his tunnel vision. And now the entire
Mhm.
field is opened up to him.
It's
We still had the
open.
Will Fuller. They brought in Brandon Cooks. They brought in Randall Cobb. We
Mhm.
still had Kiki Kuti. And honestly, it really didn't even matter who was on the field. Russell Wilson is a bad or
He was
Deshaun
playing with
Watson is
Chad
a bad man.
Hansen. Yeah,
Exactly,
Chad Hansen's out
exactly.
there with them.
Exactly,
All types of
exactly.
just no names. So yeah.
So I view Russell Wilson very much like that again, that sort of kind of elite quarterback, or the guy who can give you elite week winning ability, but is being drafted below that tier. So we're getting him at value. So I love the fact that I can stack him with the Tyler Lockett, who will go anywhere in the late to sixth round, stack him with the Gerald Everett, who goes in double digit rounds. And then again, if you want to, grab a DK Metcalf, you can definitely do that. But to me, that's an ideal stack. And this is a situation where I don't mind stacking my running back with my quarterback, because I think we're getting all of these positions at great value. And I think both can
Right.
succeed at any given week. And we saw Chris Carson also get incorporated into the passing game last year. So that's definitely one of my favorite
Right.
stacks.
So right now DK Metcalf is going like in the back end of the second,
Mhm.
the early to mid third. You're getting Carson in the back end of the third, all the way to the back end of the fourth. I don't think I've seen
Mhm.
him fall to the fifth yet, but he might have. You get Tyler Lockett in. Where are you getting Lockett now? The sixth, seven? I don't think he's going.
No,
Maybe the fifth.
his ADP is risen, I think, over the last few weeks. We're
Okay.
now seeing him go
So
towards
we're
the
like the
mid.
fifth.
Right there. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So you're getting Lockett in the fifth, and you're getting Russ. I mean, you get Russ just depending on how the draft ends up going. You can get Russ anywhere between the sixth and the ninth. I think I maybe
yeah,
seen go as far down as the 10th. So
yeah,
yeah, you can definitely. And then every you can get every in the mid double digit round. So 12, 13, 14, 15. Once you get
yeah,
that late, people are just kind of picking random tight ends. So
yeah,
you can definitely get all the pieces of that offense and kind of decide how you want to stack. Now, again, me personally, I wouldn't get a whole bunch of pieces all for the same team. You
Mhm.
said you liked Everett with Russ, which is cool. I think you're higher on Everett than I am right now.
yeah,
Because for me, they still got Will Dissly there. I mean, I know he's had injury problems, but there was a time where Will Dissly was a bad man, and
yeah,
he was producing.
yeah.
So
Well,
I don't want to just totally write him off.
yeah, and I like the continuity. I like the fact that with Shane Waldron coming in, Gerald Everett coming from
That
the
is
Saints,
yeah,
and
right.
Pete
That is a
Carroll
big plus.
commented on that specifically. I hate the fact that quote came out because I think now we're starting to see Everett's ADP
Move
rise.
some
So I
people up.
love the fact,
Yeah.
yeah, I love the fact that I could just snag him very late. That
Right.
no longer going to be the case, but I hope news starts to fade and ADP changes.
I think
We'll see
it's
what happens
slightly
with that.
still under the rug, so I think you're gonna be okay. So I don't think it's gonna be too bad.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
as far as me personally,
Yeah.
for my stack with the Seahawks, I prefer Russ and Lockett. You know,
Okay. I like that one too. I
we
like
could
that
say
one.
we could say DK is the wide receiver one, and he probably is by production as far as what he's done in the last 2 years. But early in the season, I mean, Lockett was getting quite a bit of targets. You know, he was honestly
Absolutely.
operating target wise like he was the wide receiver one.
Yeah. And
He
I
was
hear,
scoring a fair amount of touchdowns too.
yeah, I hear a lot of people reference how DK fell off or how Tyler Lockett had boom bust weeks. And I think a lot of that was
Right,
just based off the byproduct of the offense. It was based off of that
right.
offensive scheme. And I think a lot of that, again, if we go down Narrative Street, I'm gonna make this a short street. If we go down Narrative Street of what happened with the Seahawks last year, I think they started off the season by letting Russ cook, but I think their defense was not where Pete Carroll wanted it to be for whatever reason, and the
Right.
defense couldn't keep up with the offense, and as a result, Pete Carroll had to dial back the offense, move to a more run focused, ball control offense so that he could get his defense where it needed to be. And then eventually
Right.
that's what ended up happening. So I think it was more of a situation where Pete Carroll, you know, basically brought the offense, moved the offense away from this, fast paced, downfield, play action pass, and more so towards a heavy run offense.
He
And
basically took Russ out the kitchen, basically.
exactly. And as a
No
result,
more
we saw the
cooking.
production for both wide receivers take a hit. But you cannot
Right.
use you can't use the same thought process going into 2021 because it's a different offense. So
Right.
I think by having this more West Coast offense, by getting the ball out quicker, uh, I think what it does is it allows less volatility on a week to week basis
Okay.
DK Lock, between DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So I think everyone benefits from this
Now,
transition.
I don't want to understate that part of the reason their defense improved last year because they made that trade for Quadri Diggs, um, former UT alum like you. I think they got him from, I want to say, what are the Vikings? Maybe it was the Vikings or the Lions. But he's a pretty solid safety. And, he
Yeah,
was able to kind of team up with Jamal Adams back there. So that definitely kind of helped benefit their
yeah.
defense. Um, definitely, and you did kind of allude to it last year. Russ was cooking in a lot of games where the defense was just basically just failing the team. So he was
Mm-hmm.
kind of similar to kind of like what we were saying with Dak. He was trying
Mm-hmm.
to play that comeback up. Matter of fact, one of the games it was Cowboys versus Seahawks where they both kind of
Yep.
put up crazy stats. So
Yeah.
so definitely, I don't want to undermine that. 'Cause I do believe their defense will be better this year. And I'm kind of saying that while Jamal Adams and Diggs, the guy that I just spoke, are actually talking about holdouts. But I
Yeah.
do think their defense will be better. But like you said, that offensive coordinator that they just brought over, me and you, we definitely expect the offense to function and produce quite a bit better. So I definitely
Yeah,
agree with
absolutely.
being
So
on
before we
Russ.
move on to the next topic, is there a stack that you have in mind that you want to share with the audience, or are you still holding that close to the vest? Putting you on.
No, I don't have to hold it close to the vest at all.
Okay.
No. And you kind of already know who my favorite stack is. What are you talking about? The guy that I've been trying to
Oh,
get into drafts with, to specifically draft, and that's my
okay.
boy AJ Brown.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the quarterback he just is blessed to play with. It literally could have been anybody. As long as they can run a little bit,
Yeah.
which AJ Brown's quarterback can do.
Hmm.
Um, then he's a good option. And obviously, you add Julio. I mean, that does nothing but help him out. Even before the
Uh-huh.
Julio trade, remember I used to, kind of talk to you and say, hey, once that trade goes down, or if it goes down, we should expect Tannehill's value to kind of shoot up. And I don't think it's
Yeah.
shot up that much in drafts. And I
Yeah.
don't
It
really understand why,
varies.
but it does vary. It does vary. But for me, I mean, that's my favorite stack.
I